What's going on, guys? I got a great strength intelligence build here for you. It is a oldie but a goodie because this weapon has been around for a very long time. It's the Darkmoon Greatsword that we're going to be using, and it does a ton of damage stacked up with this build. I've done a ton of intelligence builds in the past, but I wanted to combine everything into seeing how much damage I could do with one build, kind of the best of all the worlds combined into one. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into the build. So as you can see from all the footage I'm showing you for this build, everything is going to combine very well in order for your Darkmoon Greatsword and your sorceries to really hit as hard as possible. I really enjoy the build that I've put together here, and overall this is a really fun build to play. Now it does require a little bit of skill because your poise is at an all-time low, you don't have a lot of armor, and you are going to be considered kind of a glass cannon. But if you can get your dodge timing right, learn the boss movesets, this build is absolutely going to annihilate bosses and enemies within Elden Ring. And just a disclaimer before we get started here, everything has been recorded on New Game Plus 5, and I am level 170. However, this is a very viable 150 build, so stay tuned for the stats at the end. So first and foremost, let's just go ahead and look right at the weapon that we're going to be using for this build. We'll be using two weapons, one for a buff and one for damage, and then we'll also be using a staff, obviously for casting our sorceries. Everything that we are equipping from Talismans armor and Flask of Wonders physic is going to pump really heavily into the Ash of War of the Darkmoon Greatsword, because that's how you're going to get the majority of your massive damage hits in this build. So the Darkmoon Greatsword is going to be given to you in Ranni's questline. This is going to be at the very end when you finally put the ring on her finger and your wildest dreams come true. She will reward you with the Darkmoon Greatsword. This is a phenomenal weapon, and rightfully so, considering it's in one of the best questlines of the game, as well as one of the most iconic weapons in all of FromSoft. We're going to have Frost build up on this weapon, which is phenomenal because Frost is one of the best affinities in the entire game, and considering that damage is going to scale with our intelligence, and this is an intelligence build, those Frost procs are going to be extra chunky. It's going to have an intelligence scaling of B, strength scaling of D, and a dex scaling of D, so we got some fantastic damage when it comes to magic coming from that intelligence scaling. And as far as magic and physical damage, they're both going to be decent, with the magic damage being much higher at 240 plus 272. The Moonlight Greatsword Ash of War is where the bread and butter of this weapon is. It's where all of your massive damage is going to come from, and it imbues the weapon with 65 magic damage and 15 frost buildup on attacks, so you're going to get a super solid buff from the Moonlight Greatsword Ash of War. And after powering up the weapon, it's going to allow you to do a horizontal slash of frost and magic damage out towards the enemy, doing a crazy amount of damage. Now speaking of damage, we are going to be boosting this damage even farther with the Commander's Standard in our other hand. We're going to be using the Rallying Standard Ash of War to get a 20% damage boost and 20% damage negation boost to our overall build. If you don't have the endurance to wield this and it makes you have a heavy load, don't worry about it, but it is a nice icing on the cake to just push that damage even farther. The Commander's Standard is going to be acquired from Commander O'Neill in the Heart of Aeonia within Caelid after you defeat him in battle. And finally, we're using the Staff of Loss for our casting. It's going to have a sorcery scaling of 301 and an intelligence scaling of S, and it's also going to be boosting our invisibility sorcery. The reason that's so important is because it's going to allow Night Comet, which we are using for this build, to be boosted by an extra 30%, which is massive. This staff can be found in Celia Town of Sorcery, right on top of one of the roofs as soon as you enter the town. However, I also want to take note here, if you do want to add a second Staff of Loss while you're casting, you can then boost Night Comet by 60% instead of 30. Now we're going to continue boosting our damage with our armor set. We're using the entire Spellblade set, which is going to give a 2% boost to damage per piece we have equipped to our magical Ashes of War. This is going to allow our Moonlight Greatsword Ash of War to hit even harder. However, if you do find that you're getting hit a lot and you do need more armor, this is not a make or break. This is just trying to squeeze every ounce of damage out of this weapon that we possibly can. And if you do want to get this armor set, you're just going to have to progress Roger's questline and Round Table Hold, and eventually he will die and he will give you the set. Now moving on to our Talismans. These Talismans are going to synergize very well, especially when we are using our Moonlight Greatsword Ash of War. So the first one we're using is going to be the Shard of Alexander. This is going to boost our skills by 15%, thus allowing us to hit even harder overall. For our second talisman, we're using the Graven Mask Talisman, and this is going to greatly raise the potencies of your sorceries. You're going to get an 8% damage boost overall to every single sorcery type that you have while using this talisman. I have been fooling around going back and forth between the Graven Mask Talisman and the Ritual Sword Talisman, just depending on how much I'm getting hit in a particular run, and if you aren't getting hit that much, the Ritual Sword Talisman might be better for you because it gives you an overall 10% attack power increase, which is going to add more damage. Now for our third talisman, we're using the Magic Scorpion Charm. This is going to raise your magic attack, but lower your damage negation. And what that means is that you're going to get a 12% magic attack boost, but you're also going to take 10% more damage. So you have to be very careful when using this talisman. However, it does give you a really nice damage boost, which is why it's in our slot number 3. And finally, in our 4th slot, we have the Godfrey icon, which is going to enhance your charge skills and spells. This is going to boost our Night Comet spell. It's also going to boost the projectile charge up time of the Moonlight Greatsword Ash of War, allowing that to hit even harder. So all of these talismans go very well together. They benefit each portion of the build well, and I really like how it turned out. So if you want to get the Shard of Alexander, you need to do Alexander's Questline, which I will leave down in the description below. The Graven Mass Talisman is going to be located in the Consecrated Snowfields with an Albinaric Rise. The Magic Scorpion Charm is going to be located at the end of Seluvis's Questline. I will leave that Questline video down in the description below so you guys can follow that step by step and snag that for yourself. And the Godfrey icon is going to be located in Altus Plateau as soon as you get into it at the Golden Lineage Everjail here on the map. Now for your Flask of Wondrous Physic, I am equipping currently the Magic Shrouding Crack tier to give me a 20% increase in my magic damage whenever I consume the Flask, as well as the Stone Barb Crack tier, which is going to give me 30% stance and stamina damage. Now the reason I'm using the Stone Barb tier is because the projectile from the Darkmoon Greatsword Ash of War actually breaks stances incredibly easy, and the Stone Barb Crack tier only makes that even easier. So that's why I've equipped that here. If you do find that you need more stamina or you need more intelligence or whatever it might be, you can sub that second tier out, but definitely use the Magic Shrouding Crack tier as that's the most important for your overall damage from the build. Now if you want to snag the Magic Shrouding Crack tier and the Stone Barb Crack tier, the Magic Shrouding tier will be located in the northeast of Liurnia of the Lakes after you defeat the Erdtree Avatar right here on the map, and the Stone Barb Crack tier is going to be located on the east side of Caelid after you defeat the Erdtree Avatar next to that minor Erdtree. Now when it comes to the buffs and sorceries of the build, I'm using Magic Glint Blade in case an enemy has a shield. I'm also using the Glintstone Ice Crag to build up that frost build up faster. Also Terra Magica for that 35% magic damage boost. And then also Night Comet as we discussed before because it hits unbelievably hard. And lastly, we have the stats for the build. Vigor, you're going to have 50. Mind is at 22. Endurance is at 28. Strength is 40. Dexterity is at 23. Intelligence is at 70. And Faith and Arcane are not touched. If you take 20 points off of this and you want to have just a level 150 build, then you're just going to have to whittle some points out of endurance as well as dexterity, and you should overall be fine. Hey guys, that is going to be it for our Darkmoon Greatsword overpowered build for Elden Ring. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know anything that you guys would tweak, maybe some things that you thought were really awesome about the build, or builds that you're currently using in Elden Ring. If you guys want to stick around more, I have some more content here I'm going to put on the screen for you. Also, if you have not subscribed and hit that bell notification for more videos, definitely do that on your way out. I appreciate it a ton, and until next time, stay safe, enjoy the game, and I'll see you in the next one.